At exactly 23 seconds in, the broadcast detonated like glass shattering in the skull of American politics. Barack Obama's voice, calm but edged with surgical contempt, sliced through the air with a revelation that painted the screen in fire. He named a number: $2 million. Not campaign funds, not business profits, but $2 million siphoned away from communities in Michigan, stolen under the banner of Trump-branded charities. Families who thought they were raising money for children's cancer treatments instead found themselves used as props. Parents sold raffle tickets, grandmothers baked pies, all believing in a cause, only to realize the coffers had been drained. Obama looked directly into the camera and let the truth bleed out. And the question hovered like a guillotine. How does Donald Trump explain to the Johnson family why their 8-year-old son's treatment never came? The room on Capitol Hill where Jasmine Crockett sat seemed to inhale the words. Walls leaned closer, marble columns whispered secrets that had been buried, and the air bled with menace. Cameras pulsed with red lights, feeding the spectacle to millions. Each second stretched taut as though the silence itself was hunting prey. Across from Jasmine, Donald Trump shifted in his chair, the orange glow of defiance clashing with the shadow of exposure. His face, once smug, flickered with the unease of a man watching his armor crack in real time. Jasmine did not flinch. Her hands rested lightly on a stack of folders that seemed to breathe, each page inside a silent blade, waiting for release. The faint rasp of paper against paper was louder than any insult Trump might hurl. She studied him with eyes that did not blink, calm as a surgeon preparing the first incision. Trump leaned forward, his voice heavy with forced bravado. He sneered at Obama's claim, dismissing it as a witch hunt and another hoax. The words clanged hollow, rehearsed, desperate. But the audience outside the chamber heard something else. The sound of a man drowning. Jasmine finally spoke, her voice low, steady, carrying weight that pulled the room into her gravity. "Truth doesn't need your permission to exist," she said. The line struck with the finality of a gavel, a phrase instantly clipped and shared across millions of screens. Children whispered it at kitchen tables, workers repeated it in factory break rooms, college students tweeted it as a rallying cry. The atmosphere thickened. The lights glared hotter, merciless as X-rays, exposing every twitch of Trump's jaw. The walls seemed to sweat with anticipation. And as Obama's clip replayed on monitors throughout the hall, Jasmine slid her fingers across the top folder, letting it rest under her palm like a restrained weapon. Trump tried to smile, but his lips trembled. He barked out an insult about Jasmine's inexperience, trying to reduce her presence. But the insult evaporated in the heavy silence that followed, a silence sharpened by Jasmine's calm gaze. The audience felt the imbalance shift, the battlefield already tilting. The room breathed in, waiting for the blade to drop. The silence had not even settled when Jasmine Crockett moved her hand, slowly lifting the first folder as though unsheathing a blade. The paper within crackled like firewood, ready to spark. She drew out a single sheet, thick with ink, the kind that stains fingertips and clings to memory. The heading read in bold letters, Children's Hope Fund, Expenditure Records. Every camera zoomed in, the lens trembling, as if the truth itself rattled the machinery. Her voice cut the air with precision. "This is not an accusation. This is a ledger. $2 million promised to sick children. $2 million rerouted to a golf resort owned by Donald Trump." She did not raise her tone. She did not need to. Each word landed with the impact of a hammer breaking bone. Trump's face flushed, his mouth opening in protest. "That's fake news!" he shouted, jabbing a finger toward the cameras. But the words seemed to collapse under their own weight. Jasmine turned the page outward, letting the numbers breathe on their own. The ink glistened beneath the surgical light, and the silence grew fangs. Behind her, a young woman named Rachel Johnson stood. She was the mother Obama had named in his televised revelation. Her son Caleb only 8 years old, had battled leukemia. The family had raised money believing the Children's Hope Fund would cover treatments. Instead, they buried Caleb last October. The moment she spoke, the room itself seemed to bleed. We sold everything we had. We held car washes, we begged strangers for coins, and all that time the money was stolen. Her voice broke on the word stolen, splintering through the chamber. Gasps spread. Viewers at home leaned forward, some crying, others clenching fists. Social media exploded. Within minutes, Rachel's testimony was shared with captions. "This is what 2 million stolen looks like." Jasmine let the silence breathe again before stepping closer to Trump. Her calm was lethal. She held the ledger like a mirror. "You didn't just take money," she said. "You stole time. Caleb could have had months more, maybe years, but you stole that too." The words were not shouted, but they detonated. Trump barked back, his voice cracking. "That's a lie. A setup. Nobody believes this." But the camera split screen showed his sweating forehead and Rachel's tear-streaked face. Millions saw the contrast in real time. The walls whispered again, leaning in with menace. The marble floor seemed to pulse underfoot. Every document on Jasmine's desk felt alive, waiting for their turn to speak. She lowered the ledger gently, stacking it with surgical precision. "Justice doesn't scream. It documents," Jasmine said. And the line traveled instantly through living rooms, through smartphones, through whispered conversations in grocery store aisles. It was clipped, shared, replayed. Trump shifted, pulling at his tie, but his eyes betrayed the first crack of fear. The room was no longer his stage. It belonged to Jasmine, to Rachel, to Caleb's memory, and to the truth that had been carved into the public record. The room was still reeling when Jasmine Crockett reached for the second folder. Its weight was different, heavier, as if the paper itself mourned. She opened it slowly, the flap exhaling a sound like a wound being ripped wider. The pages inside glowed under the merciless light, columns of numbers breathing accusation. She drew one sheet into her hand and held it aloft. "This document shows exactly where the diverted money went," she said, her tone still surgical, each syllable carved clean. $600,000 to Mar-a-Lago event fees, $800,000 to legal retainers, another $600,000 to personal consulting services, all signed under Donald Trump's authorization. Trump's chair creaked as he lurched forward, veins visible along his neck. "That's a hit job. You don't understand business." His words sprayed frantic, his volume climbing in a vain attempt to drown her. But the documents did not care for volume. They pulsed with their own truth. Jasmine did not flinch. She flicked the paper lightly, letting the sound slice through his outburst. "You call this business?" she asked, her voice low but searing. "Because from where the Johnsons sit, it looks like theft with a golf course as the getaway car." The line landed like a blade, and the chamber erupted with murmurs. Social media lit up in real time. "Golf course as the getaway car" became the phrase, flooding feeds, painted on homemade signs, repeated on late-night shows before the night was over. Jasmine stepped aside, gesturing toward another family, seated in the witness section. The Garcias, from Detroit. Their daughter Elena had needed spinal surgery. They had fundraised through the same charity, believing the money would cover costs. Instead, Elena's surgery was delayed, complications followed, and the 12-year-old now faced life in a wheelchair. Mrs. Garcia's voice trembled as she told their story, but it carried through the chamber with the force of thunder. "We trusted this charity. We trusted his name. And he left our daughter broken." Trump clenched his jaw, trying to interrupt, but the sound of Mrs. Garcia sobbing drowned his sputtered words. His face reddened, his hands gripping the table like claws. Jasmine returned to her stack of documents. She slid out a photograph attached to one of the pages. Trump smiling at a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a luxury ballroom renovation funded by the very dollars meant for sick children. She let the photograph rest on the desk, face up, its glossy surface gleaming under the light like a wound. "Every brick in that ballroom," Jasmine said, her eyes locking on Trump's, "was mortared with stolen hope." The phrase echoed, repeated in gasps, in whispers, in furious tweets. Across the country, people paused their dinners, called their friends, woke their children to watch history tear itself open live. Trump's hand slammed the table, but it was not dominance. It was desperation. And Jasmine, calm as ever, placed the next folder on top of the pile. The documents were lined up like weapons, each waiting its turn to bleed truth into the chamber. Before the echoes of Trump's hand slamming the table faded, Jasmine Crockett lifted the third folder with the precision of a conductor raising a baton. The paper inside was thicker, bound in red twine, its edges frayed like scar tissue. When she untied the knot, the silence deepened, as though even the walls were holding their breath. The pages exhaled an odor of ink and dust, the scent of secrets dragged from the dark. She spread the documents wide across the table, fanning them like cards in a gambler's hand. Each bore Trump's signature, jagged and swollen with arrogance. She let the cameras feast on the ink, zooming in on the sharp lines that now cut only his credibility. Trump leaned forward, sweat glistening under the merciless lights. "You don't know what you're looking at," he barked. His voice was hoarse, desperate. Jasmine's reply was surgical. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm looking at. Your signature doesn't just authorize theft, it authorizes suffering." She turned to the Garcias, then to Rachel Johnson. "These families aren't paperwork, they're the human cost of your pen." Her words landed like scalpels, carving into the very image Trump tried to project. Theatrically, Jasmine lifted one page and held it above her head. Its edges trembled in the air like a blade. She let it fall, fluttering down onto the desk with a sound sharper than any gavel. The cameras captured every second. The page's descent replayed instantly online with captions. The moment truth cut him open. Trump tried to recover, launching into an attack. "She's a nobody, a rookie. You think anyone even knows her name outside this building?" Jasmine didn't blink. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. She leaned forward, her voice steady and calm. "They know my name now, and they'll remember yours for what you stole." The line detonated. The chamber erupted with murmurs and gasps. Social media seized it, millions repeating it in posts, on video clips, in chants outside courthouses and statehouses. Trump's face twisted, his once confident sneer collapsing into a grimace. He shuffled his papers, fumbling like a man trying to gather water in broken hands. His bravado leaked away with every second, replaced by a frantic energy that only magnified his collapse. Jasmine, unmoved, laid another page before him. This one detailed wire transfers, the numbers fat and undeniable. 300,000 redirected in a single day, from the Children's Hope Fund into Trump Organization accounts. The ink seemed to pulse under the lights. 300,000 in one day, Jasmine said. "That's not business. That's plunder." Trump's hand trembled as he pointed at her. "You're lying! You're making this up!" Jasmine gently tapped the page. Paper doesn't lie, ink doesn't forget, and signatures don't vanish. Her words were quiet, but they split him open. Across the nation, people wept, cheered, raged. Children repeated her lines at dinner tables. Veterans, workers, teachers all shared the clips, their voices rising like a tide. Trump slumped in his chair, eyes darting, searching for an escape that did not exist. And Jasmine's final motion in this act was slow, deliberate, as she slid the fourth folder forward, its edges glowing like the blade that would finish the cut. The fourth folder lay on the desk like a sealed coffin. Jasmine Crockett touched it with a deliberate calm, her fingers gliding over the manila surface, as though feeling for a pulse. The room leaned in, walls whispering, air trembling, the silence sharp enough to cut. When she finally opened it, the sound was surgical paper, tearing open like flesh. Inside, photographs and receipts spilled across the table. One by one, Jasmine spread them out, each page a wound-bleeding truth. Hotel invoices, banquet menus, champagne orders, all stamped with the Trump Organization's seal. She pointed to the numbers with precision. This was meant to cover chemotherapy for children like Caleb Johnson. Instead, it paid for caviar and chandeliers. The words detonated. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Online, hashtags formed instantly. But more powerful than the text were the faces of those watching. Parents at home clutched their children tighter. Elderly viewers shook their heads, tears streaming. Workers in factories turned up the volume, gathering around breakroom screens. Trump erupted, his voice cracking under the strain. "You don't understand. These are normal expenses. Every charity has them." He shouted until his throat went raw, his hands clawing at the table. But the evidence spread before him breathed its own story. Each page whispering secrets he could not silence. Jasmine lifted a receipt for $50,000 in floral arrangements. She held it high under the merciless lights. $50,000 for flowers, she said softly. Do you know how many months of treatment that would have bought for Caleb, for Elena Garcia? She let the silence answer. It was deafening. Mrs. Garcia, seated in the gallery, sobbed openly. Rachel Johnson clutched her hand. The chamber seemed to quake with grief and fury. The human cost filled every corner of the room, every camera lens, every living room watching across the country. Jasmine leaned in, her voice lower now, more intimate, but no less sharp. You didn't just bankrupt a fund. You bankrupted trust. You taught families who were already broken that hope itself can be stolen. Trump's face collapsed into a grimace, his hands trembling as he tried to gather the scattered papers, as if hiding them could undo what millions had just seen. His body slumped, his jaw tightened, but the mask was gone. What sat before them now was not a titan of business or politics. It was a man cornered by his own signature. Social media flooded with clips. Jasmine raising the floral receipt, Rachel weeping, Trump stammering. Outside the chamber, protesters gathered, their chants rising into the night. Hope is not for sale. Candles flickered in vigils across cities. Children chalked the words, "Justice documents," on sidewalks. Jasmine stacked the papers once more, her movements slow, deliberate, merciless. Every lie has a paper trail, she said, and yours has led us here. The chamber held its breath as she reached for the final folder. It was smaller than the others, but thicker, bound with a crimson ribbon that seemed to bleed against the pale table. This was the last cut, the blade that would finish the dissection.